Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're up to Canto 7, Chapter 4. Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. We're taking up where we left off at the lunch break at text number 41. We'd like to welcome Achinta Chaitanya to the assembly from Mayapur Dham, and Nirkula Devi Dasi, a representative from California. Sometimes feeling the touch of the Lord's lotus hands, he became spiritually jubilant and remained silent, his hairs standing on end and tears gliding down from his half-closed eyes because of his love for the Lord. Purport: when a devotee feels separation from the Lord, he becomes eager to see where the Lord is, and sometimes, when he feels pangs of separation, tears flow incessantly from his half-closed eyes. As stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Shikshashtaka, Yugayitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravrishayitam. The words Chakshusha Pravrishayitam refer to tears falling incessantly from the devotee's eyes. These symptoms, which appear in pure devotional ecstasy, were visible in the body of Prahlad Maharaj. 42. Because of his association with perfect unalloyed devotees who had nothing to do with anything material, Prahlad Maharaj constantly engaged in the service of the Lord's lotus feet. By seeing his bodily features when he was in perfect ecstasy, persons very poor in spiritual understanding become purified. In other words, Prahlad Maharaj bestowed upon them transcendental bliss. Purport: apparently Prahlad Maharaj was placed in circumstances in which he was always tortured by his father. In such material conditions, one cannot have an undisturbed mind. But since bhakti is unconditional, ahetukya pratiyata, Prahlad Maharaj was never disturbed by the chastisements of Hiranyakashipu. On the contrary, the bodily symptoms of his ecstatic love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead turned the minds of his friends, who had also been born in atheistic families. Instead of being disturbed by the torments of his father, Prahlad influenced these friends and cleansed their minds. A devotee is never contaminated by material conditions, but persons subjected to material conditions can become spiritually advanced and blissful upon seeing the behavior of a pure devotee. 43. My dear King Yudhishthira, the demon Hiranyakashipu tormented this exalted, fortunate devotee, although Prahlad was his own son. Purport: when a demon like Hiranyakashipu, despite his elevated position due to severe austerities, begins to tease a devotee, he begins falling down, and the results of his austerities dwindle. One who oppresses a pure devotee loses all the results of his austerities, penances, and pious activities. Since Hiranyakashipu was now inclined to chastise his most exalted devotee son, Prahlad Maharaj, his opulences, his devotee son, Prahlad Maharaj, his opulences began dwindling. 44. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, O best of the saints among the demigods, O best of spiritual leaders, how did Hiranyakashipu give so much trouble to Prahlad Maharaj, the pure exalted saint? Although Prahlad was his own son, I wish to know about this subject from you. Purport: to know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the characteristics of his pure devotee, one must inquire from authorities like Devarshi Narada. One cannot inquire about transcendental subject matters from a layman. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.25, Satam prasangan mamavirya sambido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata. Only by association with devotees can one authoritatively understand the position of the Lord and his devotees. A devotee like Narada Muni is addressed as Suvrata. Su means good, and Vrata means vow. Thus, the word Suvrata refers to a person who has nothing to do with the material world, which is always bad. One cannot understand anything spiritual from a materialistic scholar puffed up with academic knowledge. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktimam abhijanati, one must try to understand Krishna by devotional service and from a devotee. Therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj was quite right in wanting to learn further about Prahlad Maharaj from Sri Narada Muni. 45. A father and mother are always affectionate to their children. When the children are disobedient, the parents chastise them, not due to enmity, but only for the child's instruction and welfare. How did Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj, chastise such a noble son? This is what I am eager to know. Text 46, Saigo. Maharaj Yudhishthira further inquired, how was it possible for a father to be so violent toward an exalted son who was obedient, well-behaved, and respectful to his father? O Brahmana, O Master, I have never heard of such a contradiction as an affectionate father's punishing his noble son with the intention of killing him. Kindly dissipate our doubts in this regard. Purport: in the history of human society, an affectionate father is rarely found to chastise a noble and devoted son. Therefore, Maharaj Yudhishthira wanted Narada Muni to dissipate his doubt. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Hiranyakashipu Terrorizes the Universe. Bravo! Bravissimo! Sadhu, sadhu. Nandasuna, he's good. Nandasuna is good. Okay.
Chapter 5. Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Text 1.
Saintly son of Hiranyakashipu.
That's what I thought. Mood elevator you got in there, huh? Okay. You ought to. Text 1. The great saint Narada Muni said, the demons, headed by Hiranyakashipu, accepted Shukracharya as their priest for ritualistic ceremonies. Shukracharya's 2 sons, Shanda and Amarka, lived near Hiranyakashipu's palace. Purport. The beginning of the life story of Prahlad is recounted as follows. Shukracharya became the priest of the atheists, especially Hiranyakashipu, and thus his 2 sons, Shanda and Amarka, resided near Hiranyakashipu's residence. Shukracharya should not have become the priest of Hiranyakashipu, because Hiranyakashipu and his followers were all atheists. A Brahmana should become the priest of a person interested in the advancement of spiritual culture. The very name Shukracharya, however, indicates a person interested in obtaining benefits for his sons and descendants, regardless of how the money comes. A real Brahmana would not become a priest for atheistic men. Text 2. Prahlad Maharaj was already educated in devotional life, but when his father sent him to those 2 sons of Shukracharya to be educated, they accepted him at their school along with the other sons of the Asuras. Text 3. Prahlad certainly heard and recited the topics of politics and economics taught by the teachers, but he understood that political philosophy involves considering someone a friend and someone else an enemy, and thus he did not like it. Purport. Politics involves accepting one group of men as enemies and another group as friends. Everything in politics is based on this philosophy, and the entire world, especially at the present, is engrossed in it. The public is concerned with friendly countries and friendly groups, or enemy countries and enemy groups. But as stated in Bhagavad Gita, a learned person does not make distinctions between enemies and friends. Devotees especially do not create friends and enemies. A devotee sees that every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaivangsho jiva bhuta. Therefore a devotee treats friends and enemies equally by trying to educate them both in Krishna consciousness. Of course, atheistic men do not follow the instructions of pure devotees, but instead consider a devotee their enemy. A devotee, however, never creates a situation of friendship and enmity. Although Prahlad Maharaj was obliged to hear the instructions of Shanda and Amarka, he did not like the philosophy of friends and enemies, which forms the basis of politics. He was not interested in this philosophy. Text 4. My dear King Yudhishthir, once upon a time, the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, took his son Prahlad on his lap and very affectionately inquired, "My dear son, please let me know what you think is the best of all the subjects you have studied from your teachers." Purport. Hiranyakashipu did not ask his son anything that would be very difficult for him to answer. Instead, he gave the boy a chance to speak plainly about whatever he thought might be best. Prahlad Maharaj, of course, being a perfect devotee, knew everything and could say what the best part of life is. In the Vedas it is said, Kasmin nu bhagavo bigyate sarvam idam bigyatam bhavati. If one properly understands God, well, there's different. Did you know that? There's similar. Yeah, there's different aphorisms that sound almost exactly the same in the Upanishads. In the Upanishads. Kasmin nu bhagavo bigyat. Kasmin nu bhagavo bigyate sarvam idam bigyatam bhavatiti. That's another sign that it's from a different part of the Upanishads. It is. Don't believe me, do you? You gonna look it up? Say that again? No, it's not wrong. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. It's an Upanishad. I think we should continue reading. Report it to the Sabha. If one properly understands God, he can understand any subject matter very nicely. Sometimes we have to challenge big scientists and philosophers, but by the grace of Krishna, we emerge successful. It is impossible, practically speaking, for ordinary men to challenge scientists or philosophers concerning genuine knowledge. But a devotee can challenge them because the best of everything is known to a devotee by the grace of Krishna. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham evanukam partam aham jnana jam tamaha nashayam yatmavabasto jnana deepena basvata jnana deepena basvata jnana deepena basvata. Krishna, who is situated in the core of everyone's heart as the Supersoul, dissipates all the ignorance from the heart of a devotee. As a special favor, he enlightens the devotee with all knowledge by putting before him the torch of light. Prahlad Maharaj therefore knew the best of knowledge, and when his father inquired from him, Prahlad gave him that knowledge. Prahlad Maharaj was able to solve the most difficult parts of problems because of his advanced Krishna consciousness. Therefore he replied as follows. Text 5. Prahlad Maharaj. Oh, sorry. Dehinam sada samudbigna diyam masat grahat hitvat mapatam grihamanda kubam vanam gato yad dadim ashrayeta. Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest, Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Hiranyakashipu thought that Prahlad, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlad Maharaj, however, being an exalted devotee, had acquired all the qualities of education. Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvai Samatas. Dasati Davato Bhati Manorate Nasati Davato Bahi. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consciousness manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. Krishna consistently. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications, because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Bhagavatam 5.18.12. So-called educated philosophers and scientists, who are simply on the mental platform, cannot distinguish between what is actually sat, eternal, and what is asat, temporary. The Vedic conjunction is asato ma sadgamaya, gamaya. Sadgamaya. Asato ma sadgamaya. Gamaya. It's not gamaya, it's gamaya. Asato ma sadgamaya. Oh, sadgamaya. Gamaya. What does it say here? Yeah. Maybe we should... Yes. It's not just transposed. There's two different places where it's different. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's different. Not necessarily. It can be from a different place, and
it's from a different.
Yeah, no, from a different part of the Upanishads. Huh? The meaning is the same. The meaning is exactly the same.
This section has three pairs of things, one after another. The previous one has a transposition from two different pairs. It's been corrected now, so it's the same pair.
Oh, I see. I see. I see. So it's a combination of those?
This is a combination.
Yeah. Transposed. Now I got it. I got it. Finally. God, just have patience, you know. Everyone should give up the platform of temporary existence and approach the eternal platform. The soul is eternal, and topics concerning the eternal soul are actually knowledge. Elsewhere it is said, Apashyatam atmatatvam griheshu grihamedinam. Those who are attached to the bodily conception of life, and who thus stick to life as a grihastha or a householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment, cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. Prahlad Maharaj confirmed this by saying that if one wants success in life, he should immediately understand from the right sources what his self-interest is and how he should mold his life in spiritual consciousness. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna, and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in the material world is in the bodily conception, struggling hard for existence, life after life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommended to stop this material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest, vana. In the Varnashram system, one first becomes a brahmachari, then a grihastha, a vanaprastha, and finally a sannyasi. Going to the forest means accepting vanaprastha life, which is between grihastha life and sannyas. As confirmed in the Vishnu Purana 3.8.9, Varnashramat charavata purushena parakpuman Vishnu aradyate. By accepting the institution of Varna and Ashrama, one can very easily elevate himself to the platform of worshipping Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, if one remains in the bodily conception, one must rot within this material world, and his life will be a failure. Society must have divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and for spiritual advancement, one must gradually develop as a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. Prahlad Maharaj recommended that his father accept vanaprastha life, because as a grihastha, he was becoming increasingly demoniac due to bodily attachment. Prahlad recommended to his father that accepting vanaprastha life would be better than going deeper and deeper into griham andakupam, the blind well of life as a grihastha. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore invite all the elderly persons of the world to come to Vrindavan and stay there, retired life, making advancement in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness.
Six, Narada Muni continued, when Prahlad Maharaj spoke about the path of self-realization and devotional service, thus being faithful to the camp of his father's enemies, Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, heard Prahlad's words, and he laughingly said, Thus is the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy. Purport. Hiranyakashipu, being a demon, would always consider Lord Vishnu and his devotees to be his enemies. Therefore, the word parapaksha, on the side of the enemy, is used here. Hiranyakashipu never agreed with the words of Vishnu or Krishna. Rather, he was angered by the intelligence of a Vaishnav. Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna says, Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. But demons like Hiranyakashipu never agree to this. Therefore, Krishna says, Na mam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama maya pritagyana asuram bhavamashritaha asuram bhavamashritaha asuram bhavamashritaha. But demons like Hiranyakashipu never agree to this. Those miscreants to do this, but demons like Hiranyakashipu never agree to do this. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. The asura bhava, the atheistic nature, is directly represented by Hiranyakashipu. Such persons, being mudha and naradhama, fools and rascals, the lowest among men, would never accept Vishnu as the supreme and surrender to him. Hiranyakashipu naturally became increasingly angry that his son Prahlad was being influenced by the camp of his enemies. He therefore asked that saintly persons like Narada not be allowed within the residential quarters of his son, for otherwise Prahlad would be further spoiled by Vaishnava instructions. 7. Hiranyakashipu advised his assistants My dear demons, give complete protection to this boy at the Gurukula where he is instructed, so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise. Purport: in our Krishna consciousness movement, the tactic of dressing oneself like an ordinary karmi is necessary because everyone in the demoniac kingdom is against the Vaishnava teachings. Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons of the present age. As soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments with beads on his neck and tilak on his forehead, they are immediately irritated. They criticize the Vaishnavas by sarcastically saying, Hare Krishna. And some people also chant Hare Krishna sincerely. In either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, whether one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it will have its effect. The Vaishnavas are pleased when the demons chant Hare Krishna, because this shows that the Hare Krishna movement is taking ground. The greater demons like Hiranyakashipu are always prepared to chastise the Vaishnavas, and they try to make arrangements so that Vaishnavas will not come to sell their books and preach Krishna consciousness. Thus, what was done by Hiranyakashipu long, long ago is still being done. That is the way of materialistic life. Demons or materialists do not at all like the advancement of Krishna consciousness, and they try to hinder it in many ways. Yet, the preachers of Krishna consciousness must go forward, in their Vaishnava dress or any other dress, for the purpose of preaching. Chanakya Pandit says that if an honest person deals with a great cheater, it is necessary for him to become a cheater also, not for the purpose of cheating, but to make his preaching successful. Yes, sir? Very liberal. Yeah, make your point so everyone can hear online.
Yeah, I was thinking Prabhupada is very liberal, very broad-minded, and is accommodating, either you can go one way or another. It's not like one-sided.
Utilitarian.
Yeah, precise. Yeah.
Kesava Bharati Maharaj and I, full disclosure, we used to wear wigs. I joined the temple. I got shaved up, and then they took me down to the wig shop, and I got a wig. And first they were long hair wigs.
Yeah, I had a long brown one.
He had one with some. He had some with some feathered effect, like with some gray in it. It looked kind of style. It is true. It's true. And we used to have in the Brahmacharya ashram, we'd have these styrofoam heads. And then, when we get back, we'd wash our wig with special, and we'd put it on and you come in and you see the wigs lined up. Some people like Suridas, who didn't wash his wig, and he'd keep it in the bottom of his book bag, He'd just run in the airport, throw it on his head. We called it the raccoon. It was like wearing a raccoon on his head.
Then when one of the security guys saw me coming on the other side, they go, and I go, and they go out to the van
and put a different wig.
Come in another place, and then it was okay.
And first we had long hair wigs with a part in the middle. And then when I got to Chicago, they said, hey, we're wearing short. It was a big revolutionary thing that we're wearing short hair wigs now. Because in the 70s, we were always talking to young people, hippies. They all had long hair. And then they said, we're talking to businessmen now. We wear short wigs. This is a true history. And Bhaktidas in America, he was the leader of the San Diego temple. And he sent out a traveling Sankirtan party. And they were out and they were getting kicked out everywhere because they're going around dressed like devotees. So Bhaktidas had him go to the Salvation Army and buy a bunch of regular clothes and wear them out there. And there was a big fight, actually. Kirtananda Swami wrote to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, they're reverting back into hippieism. And Prabhupada didn't stop it right away. And then Karandar wrote to Prabhupada and said, but Prabhupada, they've doubled their scores because they're being able to stay. And then Prabhupada wrote back and said, let them do it. And he wrote this purport. Of course, this purport came out 1976. But even before that, there's letters back and forth about Prabhupada facilitating these kinds of things. Just saying. Text 8. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukula, the place where the Brahmanas taught the boys, the priests of the demons, Shunda and Amarka, pacified him. With very mild voices and affectionate words, they inquired from him as follows. Purport: Shunda and Amarka, the priests of the demons, were eager to know from Prahlad Maharaj who the Vaishnavas were that came to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. Their purpose was to discover the names of these Vaishnavas. In the beginning they did not threaten the boy, because when threatened he might not identify the real culprits. Therefore they very mildly and peacefully inquired as follows. Dear son Prahlad, all peace and good fortune unto you. Kindly don't speak lies, just reply with the truth. These boys you see are not like you, for they do not speak in a deviant way. How have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled in this way? Purport: Prahlad Maharaj was still a boy, and therefore his teachers thought that if they pacified the little boy, he would immediately speak the truth, revealing the secret of how the Vaishnavas came there to teach him lessons in devotional service. It was surprising, of course, that in the same school the other boys of the Daityas were not polluted. Only Prahlad Maharaj was supposedly polluted by the instructions of the Vaishnavas. The main duty of the teachers was to inquire who those Vaishnavas were that came to teach Prahlad and spoil his intelligence. Text number 10. O best of your family, has this pollution of your intelligence been brought about by you or by the enemies? We are all your teachers and are very eager to hear about this. Please tell us the truth. Purport: Prahlad Maharaj's teachers were astonished that a small boy could speak such exalted Vaishnava philosophy. Therefore they inquired about the Vaishnavas who stealthily taught it to him, in order that these Vaishnavas might be arrested and killed in the presence of Prahlad's father, Hiranyakashipu.
Text 11. Prahlad Maharaj replied, Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy, by diluting the intelligence of men. Indeed, I am now actually experiencing this, although I have previously heard it from authoritative sources. Purport: as stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.18, Vidyavanaya sampane brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shapake cha panditak samadarshanaha pandita samadarshanaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast. Pandita, those who are actually learned, the equipoised, advanced devotees who have full knowledge of everything, do not see any living entity as an enemy or friend. Instead, with broader vision, they see that everyone is part of Krishna, as confirmed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jivara surupahaya Krishnara nityadas. Every living entity, being part of the Supreme Lord, is meant to serve the Lord, just as every part of the body is meant to serve the whole body. As servants of the Supreme Lord, all living entities are one, but a Vaishnava, because of his natural humility, addresses every other living entity as Prabhu. A Vaishnava sees other servants to be so advanced that he has much to learn from them. Thus he accepts all other devotees of the Lord as Prabhus, masters. Although everyone is a servant of the Lord, one Vaishnava servant, because of humility, sees another servant as his master. Understanding of the master begins from understanding of the spiritual master. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati katopi. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Sakshat darit vaina samasta shastrir uktastata bhavyate eva sadbihi kintu prabhor yak priya eva tasya Mande Guru Shri Charanada Vindam Mande Guru Shri Charanada Vindam Mande Shri Charanada Vindam. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. The spiritual master, the servant of God, is engaged in the most confidential service of the Lord, namely, delivering all the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya, in which one thinks, this person is my enemy, and that one is my friend. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the friend of all living entities, and all living entities are eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. Oneness is possible through this understanding, not through artificially thinking that every one of us is God or equal to God. The true understanding is that God is the Supreme Master and that all of us are servants of the Supreme Lord and are therefore on the same platform. This had already been taught to Prahlad Maharaj by his spiritual master, Narada, but Prahlad was nonetheless surprised by how a bewildered soul thinks one person his enemy and another his friend. As long as one adheres to the philosophy of duality, thinking one person a friend and another an enemy, he should be understood to be in the clutches of Maya. The Mayavadi philosopher, who thinks that all living entities are God and are therefore one, is also mistaken. No one is equal to God. The servant cannot be equal to the master. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, the master is one, and the servants are also one. But the distinction between the master and the servant must continue, even in the liberated stage. In the conditioned stage, we think that some living beings are our friends, whereas others are enemies, and thus we are in duality. In the liberated stage, however, the conception is that God is the master, and that all living entities, being servants of God, are one. Text 12. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pandit and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. Purport. When Prahlad Maharaj's teachers and demoniac father asked him how his intelligence had been polluted, Prahlad Maharaj said, as far as I am concerned, my intelligence has not been polluted. Rather, by the grace of my spiritual master and by the grace of my Lord Krishna, I have now learned that no one is my enemy and no one is my friend. We are actually eternal servants of Krishna. But under the influence of the external energy, we think that we are separately situated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as friends and enemies of one another. This mistaken idea has now been corrected, and therefore, unlike ordinary beings, human beings, I no longer think that I am God and that others are my friends and enemies. Now I am rightly thinking that everyone is an eternal servant of God and that our duty is to serve the Supreme Master, for then we shall stand on the platform of oneness as servants. Demons think of everyone as a friend or enemy, but Vaishnavas say that since everyone is a servant of the Lord, everyone is on the same platform. Therefore a Vaishnava treats other living entities neither as friends nor as enemies, but instead tries to spread Krishna consciousness, teaching everyone that we are all one as servants of the Supreme Lord, but are uselessly wasting our valuable lives by creating nations, communities, and other groups of friends and enemies. Everyone should come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and thus feel oneness as a servant of the Lord. Although there are 8,400,000 species of life, a Vaishnava feels this oneness. The Ishopanishad advises, Ekatvam Anupashyatak. A devotee should see the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be situated in everyone's heart, and should also see every living entity as an eternal servant of the Lord. This vision is called Ekatvam, oneness. Although there is a relationship of master and servant, both master and servant are one because of their spiritual identity. This is also ekatvam. Thus the conception of ekatvam for the Vaishnava is different from that of the Mayavadi. Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj how he had become antagonistic to his family. When a family member is killed by an enemy, all the members of the family would naturally be inimical to the murderer. But Hiranyakashipu saw that Prahlad had become friendly with the murderer. Therefore he asked, "Who has created this kind of intelligence in you? Have you developed this consciousness? Since you were a small boy, someone must have induced you to think this way." Prahlad Maharaj wanted to reply that an attitude favorable toward Vishnu can develop only when the Lord is favorable, sa yadanuvrta. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is the friend of everyone, suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantimrichjati. The Lord is never an enemy to any of the millions of living entities, but is always a friend to everyone. This is true understanding. If one thinks that the Lord is an enemy, his intelligence is pashu buddhi, the intelligence of an animal. He falsely thinks, I am different from my enemy, and my enemy is different from me. The enemy has done this, and therefore my duty is to kill him. This misconception is described in this verse as Beda Gatasati. The actual fact is that everyone is a servant of the Lord, as confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jivira Surupohaya Krishnara Nityadas. As servants of the Lord, we are one, and there can be no questions of enmity or friendship. If one actually understands that every one of us is a servant of the Lord, where is the question of enemy or friend? Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. I'll repeat that. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking, Vaikuntha thinking. There may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing service, but in the Vaikuntha planets, the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. This is Vaikuntha competition. There is no question of enmity between servants. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. Since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanavista matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, giving dictation according to the attitude of the servant. However, the Lord gives different dictation to the non-devotees and devotees. The non-devotees challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the Lord dictates in such a way that the non-devotees forget the Lord's service life after life, and are punished by the laws of nature. But when a devotee very seriously wants to render service to the Lord dictates in a different way. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesham sadati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami bodhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. To those who yantite yenamam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Everyone is actually a servant, not an enemy or a friend, and everyone is working under different directions from the Lord, who directs every living entity according to his mentality. 13. What a purport, eh? Isn't it? Wait, Gobble Champu was going to say something.
Hare Krishna. That last, the last part of the purport we just read was just Chittiketu Maharaj was just ringing in my mind. As far as when he, at first, when Angira Rishi and Narada Muni came to him, they gave him instructions on how to beget a son, because that was what he was desiring in his heart. And then after going through that whole episode, then he was like, all right, forget that. I just want pure devotional service. And then they revealed to him the real path.
13. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the supersoul within themselves. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with the Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj admitted frankly, my dear teachers, you wrongly think that Lord Vishnu is your enemy, but because he is favorable toward me, I understand that he is the friend of everyone. You may think that I have taken the side of your enemy, but factually, he has bestowed a great favor upon me. Text 14. O Brahmanas, teachers, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically toward the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus, I have no independence. Purport. For iron to be attracted to a magnet is natural. Similarly, for all living entities to be attracted toward Krishna is natural, and therefore the Lord's real name is Krishna, meaning he who attracts everyone, and everything. The typical examples of such attraction are found in Vrindavan, where everything and everyone is attracted by Krishna. The elderly persons like Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, the friends like Sridhama, Sudama, and the other cowherd boys, the gopis like Srimati Radharani and her associates, and even the birds, beasts, cows, and calves are attracted. The flowers and fruits in the gardens are attracted, the waves of the Yamuna are attracted, and the land, sky, trees, plants, animals, and all other living beings are attracted by Krishna. This is the natural situation of everything in Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada Ki Jai. Just contrary to the affairs of Vrindavan is the material world, where no one is attracted by Krishna and everyone is attracted by Maya. This is the difference between the spiritual and material worlds. Hiranyakashipu, who was in the material world, was attracted by women and money, whereas Prahlad Maharaj, being in his natural position, was attracted by Krishna. In replying to Hiranyakashipu's question about why Prahlad Maharaj had a deviant view, Prahlad said that his view was not deviant, for the natural position of everyone is to be attracted by Krishna. Hiranyakashipu found this view deviant. Prahlad said, because of being unnaturally unattracted by Krishna. Hiranyakashipu therefore needed purification. As soon as one is purified of material contamination, he is again attracted by Krishna. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat padat vena nirmalam. In the material world, Everyone is contaminated by the dirt of sense gratification and is acting according to different designations, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as a beast, sometimes a demigod or tree, and so on. One must be cleansed of all these designations. Then one will be naturally attracted to Krishna. The bhakti process purifies the living entity of all unnatural attractions. When one is purified, he is attracted by Krishna and begins to serve Krishna instead of serving Maya. This is his natural position. A devotee is unattracted by Krishna. A devotee is attracted by Krishna, whereas a non-devotee, being contaminated by the dirt of material enjoyment, is not. This is confirmed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 7.28. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvam maham nirmukta bhajanti mam dridavrataha bhajanti mam dridavrataha bhajanti mam dridavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. One must be freed from all the sinful dirt of material existence. Everyone in this material is dominated by material desire. Unless one is free from all material desire, anyabhilashita shunyam, one cannot be attracted by Krishna. Text 15. The great saint Narada Muni continued. The great soul Prahlad Maharaj became silent after saying this to his teachers, Shanda and Amarka, the seminal sons of Shukracharya. These so-called Brahmanas then became angry at him. Because they were servants of Hiranyakashipu, they were very sorry. And to chastise Prahlad Maharaj, they spoke as follows. Purport. The word Shukra means semen. The sons of Shukracharya were Brahmanas by birthright, but an actual Brahmana is one who possesses the Brahminical qualities. The Brahmanas, Shanda and Amarka, being seminal sons of Shukracharya, did not actually possess real Brahminical qualifications, for they engaged as servants of Hiranyakashipu. An actual Brahmana is very much satisfied to see anyone, not to speak of his disciple, become a devotee of Lord Krishna. Such Brahmanas are meant to satisfy the Supreme Master. A Brahmana is strictly prohibited from being a servant of anyone else, for that is the business of dogs and Shudras. A dog must satisfy his master, but a Brahmana does not have to satisfy anyone. He is simply meant to satisfy Krishna. Anukulyana Krishna Nushilanam. That is the real qualification of a Brahmana. Because Shanda and Amarka were seminal Brahmanas and had become servants of such a master as Hiranyakashipu, they unnecessarily wanted to chastise Prahlad Maharaj.
Reflections? Anything that you all heard that you'd like to reflect back? Yes, Mahendra Prabhu. Could you pass him the mic, please?
I was just struck by the purport of the 12th verse, the long purport, and the part where Prabhupada spoke about the Vaikuntha mood.
About what?
The Vaikuntha mood.
Vaikuntha mood.
Where everyone is united, there is oneness, although there might be sometimes, as he says, let's see, there may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants and performing service, but in the Vaikuntha plan, as the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. So it still allows for no competition, but it's transcendental. There is no enmity, and everyone appreciates the other, although they try to compete to please Krishna. But how the way Prabhupada put it was very impressive for me.
Thank you very much. A few more reflections, things that you heard. Yes, Nandu.
Hare Krishna, I like that part where it was explained that it's natural for the living entities to be attracted towards Krishna. And I liked
the iron,
like the iron to the magnet. And Prabhupada is explaining that it's like that in Vrindavan. And Maharaj said, or he explained that the devotees hold the spiritual world in special esteem because there it's a place where you only associate with devotees and everyone is attracted towards Krishna. So I remembered that.
And wasn't it also in the same context that he said in the material world everyone's attracted to the external energy? It's kind of true, isn't it? Everyone's enamored of the material energy, but in the Vrindavan, you can see how with the same kind of enthusiasm that people chase after Maya, they chase after Krishna in the spiritual world.
I'm always struck when Prabhupada talks about ISKCON and the Krishna consciousness movement and applies these principles to how we are supposed to treat one another and be in order to spread Krishna consciousness. And I don't remember whether it was Prabhupada who said, or someone said that these are his ecstasies. When he used to say his purports were his ecstasies, especially emotional ecstasies. And I was just thinking that when he does that and applies it to his own service to his spiritual master, that's to me it's the nicest thing to hear of his ecstasies, how he feels about how we're supposed to act and what we're supposed to do in this movement. And there was one paragraph where he talked directly about, how in ISKCON we're supposed to, treat each other like we're spiritual beings and spiritual souls and cooperate.
Going back a couple of chapters, I was reflecting on Hiranyakashipu's determination to perform his austerities, where he said that I'm eternal and I'm eternal, so if I just start now, at some point I'll be Brahma. And I was thinking about Rukmini, because Rukmini had the same thing in the pure form, that I don't care how long it takes, I'll live and die and just keep performing austerities and do what I have to get you as my husband, Krishna.
I noticed in that section also that he outdid Brihaspati, because they became subservient to Hiranyakashipu, that is the great rishis, who everybody knows had performed the most severe austerities over so much time. And from that context I was thinking about how the material world is so calculated, tit for tat. This idea of elevation, you get a certain number of frequent flyer miles and you move up to the next level. And if you lose them, then you fall back down again. But everybody's calculating how much tapasya you put in on the material level and the karma kanda and all that. That's how you can surpass somebody for a while. So calculative and manipulative also. Prabhu, you were going to say? I could see there was a question budding in your mind. What? I mean, a point.
It's just, I find this point about, I just read, because as long as one adheres to the philosophy of duality, thinking one person a friend and another an enemy, he should be understood to be in the clutches of Maya. And I just see like a follow-up of the theme that we have been discussing for so many chapters, about how the devotee is not concerned with duality. And the duality arises from a conception of being separate from God, arises from ego. We see things as separate from God so that we can enjoy them, and then we accept and reject. But when we put Krishna in the center, then the duality is eliminated. And Prabhupada explains in this purport like really nicely, because the most difficult thing, duality, to give up is this friendship and enemies. Heat, cold, all this is easier, but when dealing with friend and enemy is very, very difficult. So anyway, that was my...
Thank you. Yes, anything more? Yes.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
About friends and enemies in terms of like one of the purports that said a devotee doesn't have any friends and enemies, he just preaches Krishna consciousness, something like that. I'm wondering, like, it seems like an immature understanding would be that it doesn't matter how you treat devotees then. If you don't have any friends, you just stick to your preaching, you don't treat each other very well. That's really, like that could come from that type of statement.
I think it's more like semantics in this case about what friends and enemies actually means. And the reason I think that is because there is a way in which we're advised to make friends with devotees. Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu tu satsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. So the admonition given to the Madhyama Adhikari is that for the towards the devotees we should have maitri, or friendship. And however it's described by Rupa Goswami, it should be appropriate friendship according to the level of the devotee. And it's based on their spiritual achievement. So for those who just say Hare Krishna, then we should in our mind respect them. For those who've become initiated and are chanting, we should get down and offer obeisances. And for those who have become advanced in the process of Krishna consciousness, whose hearts have actually become purified of the propensity to criticize others, then we should serve them faithfully and so forth. So there is a sense in which amongst devotees we should make appropriate friendships. But the kind of friends and enemies that are being talked about here is based on material calculation. That I'm an enemy of this person because they challenge my property, my sense of my false self, my false ego. And the other people, I like them because they support me. For instance, so much here is mentioned in politics, that polarization because somebody has a slightly different view than me. Devotees are able to rise above that and not reproach others based on some political understanding or the fact that they're not in the same country or something like that. So many times we heard the verse Vidya Vinaya Sampane, the devotee is able to see equally all living entities. But on the spiritual level, there's definitely a sense of friendship, and it's presented as being very important how we make those friendships and how we engage in proper relationships with devotees. In fact, it's even said before the verse I quoted from Rupa Goswami about the different levels, that dadati pratigranati kuyamakyati prachiti punkte bojayate chaiva shadvidam pratilakshanam. Pratilakshana means there should be loving relationships between devotees, and even names the 6 ways in which we do that: giving gifts, accepting gifts, giving prasad, accepting prasad, speaking what's in our heart, and hearing what others have in their hearts, their realizations about Krishna consciousness, so forth. Those are all emphasized even before he says anything about chanting Hare Krishna. So it's a matter of understanding what the real meaning of not making friends and enemies means, not on a superficial level, that somebody becomes my friend because they gratify my senses, or they become my enemy because they threaten my sense of false ego. Right? My territory, yeah. As devotees, if you don't have any sense of territory and everything's being supplied by Krishna, then you don't feel threatened by people, because you're only depending on Krishna. Prabhu? Mahendra?
In that connection, would you say something more in terms of that we see also amongst devotees, maybe not to that extreme as the words are used, friends and enemies, but in the Sanskrit it's like swa and para, and it is its own and others, and there are camps and all kinds of camps between devotees, divided in groups. This party spirit, liberals, conservatives, and this and that, and there is tension sometimes which breaks this unity of which Prabhupada talks about. This is the Vaikuntha mode. So what would you say? How
Listen now. After you.
It's a famous letter which Prabhupada wrote. We call it the Utopia letter. And it deals with this subject matter very thoroughly. And it's a nice long letter. And in that letter, Srila Prabhupada says that it isn't that because there may be some difference of opinion or mismanagement or things like that, that this is impersonalism and everyone should be one in agreement. It's not like that. He said even in the spiritual world there's differences of opinion because the nature of a living entity is to have its own nature. And therefore no two souls will agree on everything, even in the spiritual world. And therefore even in the spiritual world you find groups and camps and right-wing, left-wing, and all those things are going on in spiritual world. Of course, there it's with Krishna completely in the center, and therefore it doesn't develop into enmity or the materialistic concepts that we do in this material world. But still, Srila Prabhupada was asking us not to have a utopian attitude that if we're not agreeing with one another, if we're in a camp, then that means that there's something necessarily wrong, or it's not one, as long as Krishna's in the center. And then he went on to say that the devotees are, what did he say? Better than, they're the best persons.
No, better than kings, each
all
one
of them. Yeah. So we should see like that, see the service of others, Prabhupada said in that same letter. He even used the example when he was talking about how there's differences of opinions or seeming mistakes. He uses even Krishna as an example. He gets so ecstatic seeing Radharani that he makes a mistake and tries to milk a bull instead of a cow. You know, I mean, anybody, you know, a CNN reporter walking by and seeing that happen and then being told that that's God, he would say, no, that can't be right. So,
a nice, thank you, Maharaj. A nice example of seeing different camps communicating to one another in a friendly mood is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Vyankatabhata. When he went to South India, he stayed at the home of Vyankatabhata, and there they did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vyankatabhata long discussions about the supremacy of the Vaikuntha mood over, or the Vrindavan mood over Vaikuntha mood. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pushing this idea that, okay, you worship Vaikuntha, the Lord of Vaikuntha, we worship Krishna in Vrindavan, so which one's better? And then he was offering all kinds of proof in that conversation, but the author points out that it was in a very pleasant and almost a joking mood, lighthearted, as they were discussing. There was no acrimony that, you know, wow, dare you, you know, like you're going to hell, and none of those kinds of things. So there's ways in which advanced devotees can be in different camps and at the same time appreciate that there are differences. One time when Prabhupada was asked on a morning walk, why are there all these differences amongst Vaishnavas? And Prabhupada said, that is not difference, it is variety. In one fell swoop, he gave the right context, or the proper context for understanding these things. And that's that. Prabhu? Chinta Chaitanya Prabhu?
Speaking about differences of opinions, Prabhupada also draws a line when he says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that any opinion different from the opinion of the spiritual master is useless. I mean, referring to himself in that particular context. So, I mean, while there could be difference of opinion, there should not be difference from Prabhupada's own opinions.
Yeah, he's talking about the Acharya then, and he was specifically mentioning that amongst Advaita Acharya's sons, there were some that accepted the opinion of the Acharya and the others that didn't. And the ones that didn't were considered useless. So that's an important criterion that we have to see according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And if someone has their own opinion or makes an apasampradaya or something like that, then the Shastras say that we have to make distinction. But also Prabhupada told how to do that as well. When devotees first came to India, and there were all kinds of camps in India, naturally. And they would come to the young devotees and say, what do you think of Swami such and such? And Prabhupada would say, don't assail the Swami, but assail the philosophy, and ask him first what is his philosophy, and then talk about the philosophy itself. Instead of making ad hominem attacks against people, it's a much wiser way to deal with people than to deal with their philosophy and then argue on that basis compared to standard scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita. Last point?
Is that it's just the same point, but I just to get a little clearer understanding from what you're saying, that there is a lot of polarization, and a lot of the time both parties, they feel that they are, serving the spiritual master in a better way, and I'm just wondering, when all the senior Vaishnavas that are currently leaving this planet, when they go, what are we gonna do? The next generation, how are we gonna make sure that the opinion that prevails is the right one?
Well, you have to become mature. Mature people know how to accommodate differences of opinion and compartmentalize it. In fact, Prabhupada once said that the sign of a wise person is being able to hold contradictory ideas in the mind without, he didn't say freaking out, but I would say. And Prabhupada said, if the sign of a wise person is to be able to hold contradictory, opposing ideas within the mind. Those things happen all the time. And I think that it's important that devotees study the way Prabhupada, not just Prabhupada's all his books, but also the way in which he dealt with the varieties of people that came into the movement. There were so many different kinds of people. So some people, they had differences of opinion because of culture, lifestyle, even philosophy. And Prabhupada did his best. He went out of his way to accommodate the best intentions of the people who came. You can read some of the discussions about Siddha Sarupananda, who came to the Krishna conscious movement. He was a guru in his own right. He had a big following. And he was a guru type from the very beginning. And then when he read Prabhupada's books, he brought all his disciples, gave them to Prabhupada. But still there was a lot of people that followed him, and there was a sort of sense of separateness from him. And if you study how Prabhupada dealt with that, although a lot of devotees were very concerned about it, and Prabhupada was too to some degree, but he went out of his way to make sure that although he made a distinction between that group and ISKCON and so forth, he didn't summarily cut off Siddha Sarupananda from his service. He extends himself in every way possible to accommodate him so that he can continue serving. Right, Maharaj?
I remember.
Is the mic out there somewhere?
I remember specifically a morning walk. My may have been around 75 or 76, in which
Still look close.
in which there were 2 or 3 persons in the morning walk who were kind of like taking a side and trying to, asking leading questions of Prabhupada to get him to, more or less reject. Yeah, but I'm just saying.
Get after somebody else,
I'm
right?
just using this one particular,
Okay.
And Srila Prabhupada said, are they following the principles? And one of them said, yeah, they're following the principles. They're chanting? Yeah, they're chanting. Then he said, then they're with me. In other words, if someone followed the 4 regular principles and chanted Hare Krishna, their rounds, properly, then he would accept them as connected with him. He wouldn't reject them based on something that might not be in agreement with someone else. Now that it led to something, and then it developed into something more in which lines had to be drawn more clearly. But I think your point about the apasampradaya.
And there were cases there. Yeah, I was
Yes,
just going to say
yes.
that there were cases where people became obviously belligerent to Prabhupada and challenging him. And in those cases, Prabhupada was very strong in cutting them off. It was very rare that he did that, because there weren't that many people that went that far. Most people had sensual problems and he drifted away. And Prabhupada did everything he could to make sure that they got reconnected, that they weren't ostracized because of that. And in some rare cases, people philosophically deviated, and in very in ways in which there was obvious envy against the acharya. And in those cases, Prabhupada made a clear distinction. So I'm just answering, my sense is that how it goes on afterwards is devotees have to become mature by, first of all, becoming advanced enough to see the various levels of people. You have to be at least a Majjhima Adhikari. And then also, to be in line with Prabhupada and his mood, one should see how Prabhupada dealt with people, and try to adhere to that same kind of those same types of dealings, with other devotees, so that they can be accommodated in the right circumstances, and if there's a philosophical deviation, they're not. I see these kinds of things going on at the higher management levels. Devotees have to deal with these kinds of questions all the time because they come up a lot. And then senior devotees have to discuss them and say, what do we do about this? Do we accommodate? Do we, cut them off or whatever? And as far as I can see, the devotees, for instance, in the executive branch of ISKCON, really go out of their way to accommodate people as much as possible without sacrificing, some obvious boundaries.
When I read this book, Swami in a Strange Land, there was one towards the end of the book, Yogeshwar reveals that he was researching and he came across a box of letters in the archives, in the Bhaktivedanta archives. And we don't see these letters, the letters that devotees wrote to him. We see the letters that he was responding to. But he said he actually, when he read through this, he had to sit down and take a deep breath. He said it was so stunning and so emotionally intense to see exactly the levels of differences and the levels of things and problems that Prabhupada was going through on a daily basis, every single day, and how Prabhupada dealt with them in the letters. He said it was just stunning to see how Srila Prabhupada didn't take that, spiritual master, what spiritual master agrees or doesn't agree, and it's used. He was amazing.
How accommodating he was.
Not just accommodating, how he dealt with each one. The main point he was making was the level of problems that he was solving every day, many every day, wherever he went, and stayed equipoised and stayed, loyal to the persons who were taking shelter of him, and not rejecting people because they were fighting with one another, but teaching them in a very, very mature way how to cooperate and express his desire that they cooperate. Of course, that came out right at the end. I was in the room when he said it towards the end. The test of your love for me will be how well you cooperate to keep this institution together. It wasn't just cooperate, kind of willy-nilly. It was like specifically how to keep his society together, because it's the only hope of the world. Yeah. When he said that, and I also was in the room when he said, just go on discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam among yourselves, and everything will remain clear.
Hey.
That's why I'm here. Hare Krishna.
And that brings us to the cow break. We'll be back here at 27 minutes after the hour. Please be on time. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo. We're continuing with our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're now on the 7th canto, chapter 5, Prahlad, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu, with His Holiness Kesava Bharati Maharaj.
Srila Prabhupada said, the test of your love for me is how well you cooperate together to keep these reading sessions together. No. Okay. Text 16, chapter 5. Oh, please bring me a stick. This blood is damaging our name and fame. Because of his bad intelligence, he has become like a cinder in the dynasty of the demons. Oops. Now he needs to be treated by the fourth of the 4 kinds of political diplomacy. Purport. In political affairs, when a person disobediently agitates against the government, 4 principles are used to suppress him. Legal orders, pacification, the offer of a post, or finally weapons. When there are no other arguments, he is punished. In logic, this is called argumentum ad baculum. When the 2 seminal brahmanas, Shanda and Amarka, failed to extract from Prahlad Maharaj the cause for his having opinions different from those of his father, they called for a stick with which to chastise him to satisfy their master, Hiranyakashipu. Because Prahlad had become a devotee, they considered him to be contaminated by bad intelligence and to be the worst descendant in the family of demons. As it is said, where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. In a society or family in which everyone is a demon, for someone to become a Vaishnava is certainly folly. Thus Prahlad Maharaj was charged with bad intelligence because he was among demons, including his teachers, who were supposedly brahmanas. The members of our Krishna consciousness movement are in a position similar to that of Prahlad Maharaj. All over the world, 99% of the people are godless demons. Preaching of Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, is always hampered by many impediments. Because of their fault of being devotees, the American boys who have sacrificed everything for preaching Krishna consciousness are charged with being members of the CIA. Moreover, the seminal brahmanas of India, who say that one can become a brahmana only if born in a brahmana family, charge us with ruining the Hindu system of religion. Of course, the fact is that one becomes a brahmana by qualification. Because we are training Europeans and Americans to become qualified and are awarding them Brahminical status, we are being charged with destroying the Hindu religion. Nonetheless, confronting all kinds of difficulties, we must spread the Krishna consciousness movement with great determination, like that of Prahlad Maharaj. In spite of being the son of the demon Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad never feared the chastisements of the seminal Brahmana sons of a demoniac father. 17. This rascal Prahlad has appeared like a thorn tree in a forest of sandalwood. To cut down sandalwood trees, an axe is needed, and the wood of the thorn tree is very suitable for the handle of such an axe. Lord Vishnu is the axe for cutting down the sandalwood forest of the family of demons, and this Prahlad is the handle for that axe. Purport. Thorn trees generally grow in deserted places, not in sandalwood forests. But the seminal Brahmanas Shanta and Amarka compared the dynasty of the Daitya Hiranyakashipu to a sandalwood forest, and compared Prahlad Maharaj to a hard, strong thorn tree that could provide the handle of an axe. They compared Lord Vishnu to the axe itself. An axe alone cannot cut down a thorn tree. It needs a handle, which may be made of the wood of a thorn tree. Thus the thorn tree of demoniac civilization can be cut to pieces by the axe of Vishnu Bhakti, devotional service to Lord Krishna. Huh?
Isn't the example being given that the thorn tree becomes the thorn tree provides the handle to cut down sandalwood trees? So why would it say an axe alone?
I think what it's talking about is you got to cut down the thorn tree to get the handle for the axe.
Well, then how does that sentence make sense? An axe alone cannot cut a thorn tree. It needs a handle which may be made of the wood of a thorn tree. It's circular logic.
Could be.
Maybe they're just saying the axe is the metal part. They can't cut it down without the hand.
That is what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. I'm going to read it again, based on now that you put that in your mind. Let me read it again. Thorn trees generally grow in deserted places, not in sandalwood forests. But the seminal Brahmanas, Shanda and Amarka, compared the dynasty of the Daitya Hiranyakashipu to a sandalwood forest, and compared Prahlad Maharaj to a hard, strong thorn tree that could provide the handle of an axe. They compared Lord Vishnu to the axe itself. An axe alone cannot cut a thorn tree. It needs a handle, which may be made of the wood of a thorn tree. No, this means this means they're talking about cutting down Prahlad. They're talking about he's not in the sandalwood tree. He's the thorn. Prahlad Maharaj is the thorn tree. Yeah. No, he's all he need to cut down. He needs to cut down Prahlad. He's thorn tree. He's not in the sandalwood forest. The Hiranyakashipu is the sandalwood forest. Yeah, but here this part is right. This part is right. Hiranya. It's hard to hear you for some reason. I got it right next to my mouth.
It's not necessarily right next to it. It's the flat part has to be close to where the sound's coming in because it's directional.
But how do you make it do that?
You have to feel it with your thumb and point to the flat part towards where you're speaking.
Really?
I don't see anything Are you hearing it when he's speaking? No problem at all. Of course, you're closer to the speaker. But I just wanted to make sure everyone can hear fine. Go ahead, Marge. Sorry.
I'm going to read it again. Thorn trees generally grow in deserted places, not in sandalwood forests. But
The seminal Brahmanas, Shanda and Amarka, compared the dynasty of the deity Hiranyakashipu to a sandalwood forest, and compared Prahlad Maharaj to a hard, strong thorn tree that could provide the handle of an axe. They compared Lord Vishnu to the axe itself. An axe alone cannot cut down a thorn tree. It needs a handle which may be made of the wood of a thorn tree. Thus the thorn tree of demoniac civilization can be cut to pieces by the axe of Vishnu Bhakti, devotional service to Lord Krishna. Some of the members of the demoniac civilization, like Prahlad Maharaj, may become the handle for the axe to assist Lord Vishnu, and thus the entire forest of demonic civilization can be cut to pieces. I mean, it may be Arsha, what is that term? Arsha Prayoga. It might be like that. That might be why they didn't change it. You know? Yeah. 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 That's probably, yeah. Yes, sir.
It could simply mean that demonic civilization is actually a thorn tree, civilization of thorn trees, but the demons consider it like sandalwood trees. It could actually mean that demonic civilization is actually a forest of thorn trees, but demons consider it to be like sandalwood trees. So then there would be no contradiction.
I think it's something like that. That's why I read it when I first read it. But anyway, let's move on, because the idea is right. We got the idea. Text 18. Shanda and Amarka, the teachers of Prahlad Maharaj, chastised and threatened their disciple in various ways, and began teaching him about the paths of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. This is the way they educated him. Purport. In this verse, the words praradham grahayam asa are important. The words grahayam asa literally mean that they tried to induce Prahlad Maharaj to accept the paths of dharma, artha, and kama, religion, economic development, and sense gratification. People are generally preoccupied with these three concerns without interest in the path of liberation. Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj, was simply interested in gold and sense enjoyment. The word Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu refers to soft cushions and bedding on which people enjoy sense gratification. The word Prahlad, however, refers to one who is always joyful in understanding Brahman, Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma. Prahlad means Prasanatma, always joyful. Prahlad was always joyful in worshipping the Lord, but in accordance with the instructions of Hiranyakashipu, the teachers were interested in teaching him about material things. Materialistic persons think that the path of religion is meant for improving their material conditions. The materialist goes to a temple to worship many varieties of demigods, just to receive some benediction to improve his material life. He goes to a sadhu, or so-called swami, to take advantage of an easy method for achieving material opulence. In the name of religion, the so-called sadhus try to satisfy the senses of the materialists by showing them shortcuts to material opulence. Sometimes they give some talisman or blessing. Sometimes they attract materialistic persons by producing gold. Then they declare themselves God, and foolish materialists are attracted to them for economic development. As a result of this process of cheating, others are reluctant to accept the religious process, and instead they advise people in general to work for material advancement. This is going on all over the world. Not only now, but since time immemorial. No one is interested in moksha, liberation. There are four principles: dharma, religion; artha, economic development; kama, sense gratification; and moksha, liberation. People accept religion to become materially opulent. And why should one be materially opulent? For sense gratification. Thus people prefer these three margas, or the three paths of materialistic life. No one is interested in liberation, and Bhagavad Bhakti, devotional service to the Lord, is above even liberation.
Therefore, the process of devotional service, Krishna consciousness, is extremely difficult to understand. This will be explained later by Prahlad Maharaj. The teachers, Chanda and Amarka, tried to induce Prahlad Maharaj to accept the materialistic way of life, but actually their attempt was a failure. Text 19. After some time, the teachers Chanda and Amarka thought that Prahlad Maharaj was sufficiently educated in the diplomatic affairs of pacifying public leaders, appeasing them by giving them lucrative posts, dividing and ruling over them, and punishing them in cases of disobedience. Then one day, after Prahlad's mother had personally washed the boy and dressed him nicely with sufficient ornaments, they presented him before his father. Purport. It is essential for a student who is going to be a ruler or king to learn the 4 diplomatic principles. There is always rivalry between a king and his citizens. Therefore, when a citizen agitates the public against the king, the duty of the king is to call him and try to pacify him with sweet words, saying, "You are very important to the state. In the state, why should you disturb the public with some new cause for agitation? Why should, if the criticism is not pacified, if the citizen is not pacified, the king should then offer him some lucrative post as a governor or minister, any post that draws a high salary, so that he may be agreeable. If the enemy still goes on agitating the public, the king should try to create dissension in the enemy's camp. But if he still continues, the king should employ argumentum ad baculum, severe punishment, by putting him in jail or placing him before a firing squad. The teachers appointed by Hiranyakashipu taught Prahlad Maharaj how to be a diplomat so that he could rule over the citizens very nicely. Text 20. When Hiranyakashipu saw that his child had fallen at his feet and was offering obeisances as an affectionate father, he immediately began showering blessings upon the child and embracing him with both arms. A father naturally feels happy to embrace his son, and Hiranyakashipu became very happy in this way.
Narada Muni continued, "My dear King Yudhishthira, Hiranyakashipu seated Prahlad Maharaj in his lap and began smelling his head. With affectionate tears gliding down from his eyes and moistening the child's smiling face, he spoke to his son as follows. Purport: if a child or disciple falls at the feet of the father or spiritual master, the superior responds by smelling the head of the subordinate. Hiranyakashipu said, "My dear Prahlad, my dear son, O long-lived one, for so much time you have heard many things from your teachers. Now please repeat to me whatever you think is the best of that knowledge." Purport: in this verse, Hiranyakashipu inquires from his son what he has learned from his guru. Prahlad Maharaj's gurus were of 2 kinds. Chanda and Amarka, the sons of Shukracharya, in the seminal disciplic succession, were the gurus appointed by his father. But his other guru was the exalted Narada Muni, who had instructed Prahlad when Prahlad was within the womb of his mother. Prahlad Maharaj responded to the inquiry of his father with the instructions he had received from his spiritual master Narada. Thus there was again a difference of opinion, because Prahlad Maharaj wanted to relate the best thing he had learned from his spiritual master, whereas Hiranyakashipu expected to hear about the politics and diplomacy Prahlad had learned from Chanda and Amarka. Now the dissension between the father and the son became increasingly intense, as Prahlad Maharaj began to say what he had learned from his guru Narada Muni. Shriparad uvacha Shravanam kirtanam Vishno smaranam padasevanam archanam bandhanam dasyam sakyamatma nivedanam iti pumsarpita Vishnau bhaktischenna vilakshana Kriyeta Bhagavatyada Tanmanyedi Tamutamam. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Purport. When Prahlad Maharaj was asked by his father to say something from whatever he had learned, he considered that what he had learned from his spiritual master was the best of all teachings, whereas what he had learned about diplomacy from his material teachers, Shanda and Amarka, was useless. Bhakti parushanubhavo viraktiranyatrat cha. This is the symptom of pure devotional service. A pure devotee is interested only in devotional service, not in material affairs. To execute devotional service, one should always engage in hearing and chanting about Krishna or Lord Vishnu. The process of temple worship is called archana. How to perform archana will be explained herein. One should have complete faith in the words of Krishna, who says that he is the great well-wishing friend of everyone, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. A devotee considers Krishna the only friend. This is called Sakyam. Pumsarpita Vishnau. The word Pumsa means by all living entities. There are no distinctions permitting only a man or only a brahmana to offer devotional service to the Lord. Everyone can do this. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Striyo Vaishyas tata Shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Although women, Vaishyas, and Shudras are considered less intelligent, they also can become devotees and return home back to Godhead. After performing sacrifices, sometimes a person engaged in fruitive activity customarily offers the results to Vishnu. But here it is said, Bhagavatyada. One must directly offer everything to Vishnu. This is called sannyas, not merely nyas. A tridandi sannyasi carries 3 dandas, signifying kaya, mano, vakya, body, mind, and words. All of these should be offered to Vishnu, and then one can begin devotional service. Fruitive workers first perform some pious activities and then formally or officially offer the results to Vishnu. The real devotee, however, first offers his surrender to Krishna with his body, mind, and words, and then uses his body, mind, and words for the service of Krishna as Krishna desires. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives the following explanation in his Tatya. The word Shravana refers to giving oral reception to the holy name and descriptions of the Lord's form, qualities, entourage, and pastimes as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and similar authorized scriptures. After orally receiving such messages, one should memorize these vibrations and repeat them, kirtanam. Smaranam means trying to understand more and more about the Supreme Lord, and padasevanam means engaging oneself in serving the lotus feet of the Lord according to the time and circumstances. Archana means worshipping Lord Vishnu as one does in the temple, and Vandana means offering respectful obeisances. Manmana pavamat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Vandana means namaskuru, offering obeisances or offering prayers. Thinking oneself to be Nitya Krishna Das, everlastingly a servant of Krishna, is called dasyam, and sakyam means being a well-wisher of Krishna. Krishna wants everyone to surrender unto him because everyone is constitutionally his servant. Therefore, as a sincere
service is technically called bhakti. The word adha means directly. One should not be like the karmis who perform pious activities and then formally offer the results to Krishna. That is karmakanda. One should not aspire for the results of his pious activities, but should dedicate oneself fully and then act piously. In other words, one should act for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu, not for the satisfaction of his own senses. That is the meaning of the word adha,
directly. Anyabilachita shunyam jnanakarma janavritam anakolyana krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. One should simply satisfy Krishna without being influenced by fruitive knowledge or fruitive activity. The Gopal Tapani Upanishad says that the word bhakti means engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not of anyone else. This Upanishad describes that bhakti is the offering of devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To perform devotional service, one should be relieved of the bodily conception of life and aspirations to be happy through elevation to the higher planetary systems. In other words, work performed simply for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord without any desire for material benefits is called bhakti. Bhakti is also called nishkarma, or freedom from the results of fruitive activity. Bhakti and nishkarma are on the same platform, although devotional service and fruitive activity appear almost the same. The 9 different processes enunciated by Prahlad Maharaj, who learned them from Narada Muni, may not at all be required for the execution of devotional service. May not all be required for the execution of devotional service. If a devotee performs only one of these 9 without deviation, he can attain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes it is found that when one performs one of the processes, other processes are mixed with it. That is not improper for a devotee. When a devotee executes any one of the 9 processes, navalakshana, this is sufficient. The other 8 processes are included. Now let us discuss these 9 different processes. 1. Shravanam. Hearing of the holy name of the Lord, Shravanam, is the beginning of devotional service. Although any one of the 9 processes is sufficient, in chronological order, the hearing of the holy name of the Lord is the beginning. Indeed, it is essential. As enunciated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaito Darpanam Arjanam, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is cleansed of the material conception of life, which is due to the dirty modes of material nature. When the dirt is cleansed from the core of one's heart, one can realize the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishwarak Paramak Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Thus, by hearing the holy name of the Lord, one comes to the platform of understanding the personal form of the Lord. After realizing the Lord's form, one can realize the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and then one can understand His transcendental qualities. And when one can understand His transcendental qualities, one can understand the Lord's associates. In this way, a devotee advances further and further toward complete understanding of the Lord as he awakens in realization of the Lord's holy name, transcendental form and qualities, His paraphernalia, and everything pertaining to Him. Therefore, the chronological process is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. This same process of chronological understanding holds true in chanting and remembering. When the chanting of the holy name, form, and qualities, and paraphernalia, when the chanting of the holy name, form, qualities, and paraphernalia is heard from the mouth of a pure devotee, his hearing and chanting are very pleasing. Srila Sanatana Goswami has forbidden us to hear the chanting of an artificial devotee or non-devotee. Hearing from the text of Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process of hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of transcendental chanting of the holy name, and therefore the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendentally full of mellows. The transcendental holy name of the Lord may be heard and chanted according to the attraction of the devotee. One may chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, or one may chant the holy name of Lord Rama or Nrsingadev. Ramadi Murti Yukalani Amena Tishnan. The Lord has innumerable forms and names, and devotees may meditate upon a particular form and chant the holy name according to his attraction. The best course is to hear of the holy name, form, and so on from a pure devotee of the same standard as oneself. In other words, one who is attached to Krishna should chant and hear from other pure devotees who are also attached to Lord Krishna. The same principle applies for devotees attracted to Lord Rama, Lord Nrsinga, and other forms of the Lord. Because Krishna is the ultimate form of the Lord, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, it is best to hear about Lord Krishna's name, form, and pastimes from a realized devotee who is particularly attracted by the form of Lord Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, great devotees like Shukadev Goswami have specifically described Lord Krishna's holy name, form, and qualities. Unless one hears about the holy name, form, and qualities of the Lord, one cannot clearly understand the other processes of devotional service. I'm going to read that again. Unless one hears about the holy name, form, and qualities of the Lord, one cannot clearly understand the other processes of devotional service. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that one chant the holy name of Krishna, Prambijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. If one is fortunate enough to hear from the mouth of realized devotees, he is very easily successful on the path of devotional service. Therefore, hearing of holy name, form, and qualities of the Lord is essential. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.11, there is this verse. Tagvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam advadyapatyapi namanyanantasya yashankitani yat shinvanti gayanti grananti sadava shinvanti gayanti grananti sadava shinvanti gayanti grananti sadava. Verses describing the name, form, and qualities of Anantadev, the unlimited Supreme Lord, are able to vanquish all the sinful reactions of the entire world. Therefore, even if such verses are improperly composed, devotees hear them, describe them, and accept them as bona fide and authorized. In this connection, Sridhar Swami has remarked that a pure devotee takes advantage of another pure devotee by trying to hear from him about the holy name, form, and qualities of the Lord. If there is no such opportunity, he alone chants and hears the Lord's holy name. Say what?
This, if I'm not mistaken, this reference from Sridhar Swami is part of the Pramanam for what I was mentioning earlier that Jiva Goswami mentions in the, I think, Bhakti Sandarbha, where he talks about how given the opportunity, devotees would like to hear from other devotees, and then if they don't have that, they'll actually chant the text themselves, and that's actually superior to reading out loud. Jiva Goswami quotes this Sridhar Swami reference in that section. It's part of his Pramanam.
2. Kirtanam. The hearing of the holy name has been described above. Now let us try to understand the chanting of the holy name, which is the second item in the consecutive order. It is recommended that such chanting be performed very loudly. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni says that without shame he began traveling all over the world, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised, Trinadapi sunichena torodapi hishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sada harihi Kirtaniya sada hari, Kirtaniya sada hari. A devotee can very peacefully chant the holy name of the Lord by behaving more humbly than the grass, being tolerant like a tree, and offering respects to everyone, without expecting honor from anyone else. Such qualifications make it easier to chant the holy name of the Lord. The process of transcendental chanting can be easily performed by anyone, even if one is physically unfit, classified lower than others, devoid of material qualifications, or not at all elevated in terms of pious activities. The chanting of the holy name is beneficial. I really like that sentence. The process of transcendental chanting can be easily performed by anyone, even if one is physically unfit, classified lower than others, devoid of material qualifications, or not at all elevated in terms of pious activities. The chanting of the holy name is beneficial. Oh, yeah. This could be a song. Physically unfit, lower than others, devoid of material qualifications. An aristocratic birth, an advanced education, beautiful bodily features, wealth, and similar results of pious activities are all unnecessary for advancement in spiritual life. For one can very easily advance simply by chanting the holy name. It is understood from the authoritative source of Vedic literature that especially in this age, Kali Yuga, people are generally short-living, extremely bad in their habits, and inclined to accept methods of devotional service that are not bona fide. Moreover, they are always disturbed by material conditions, and they are mostly unfortunate. Under the circumstances, the performance of other processes such as yajna, dana, tapa, and kriya, sacrifices, charity, and so on, are not at all possible. Therefore it is recommended, Harinama, Harinama, Hariname Vakevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one advances perfectly in spiritual life. This is the best process for success in life. In other ages, the chanting of the holy name is equally powerful, but especially in this age, Kali Yuga, it is most powerful. Kirtana deva Krishnasya muktasanga param vrajet. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one is liberated and returns home back to Godhead. Therefore, even if one is able to perform other processes of devotional service, one must adopt the chanting of the holy name as the principal method of advancing in spiritual life. Yagnai sankirtana prayir yajantihi sumedasaha. Those who are very sharp in their intelligence should adopt this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. One should not, however, manufacture different types of chanting. One should adhere seriously to the chanting of the holy name as recommended in the scriptures. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare. While chanting the holy name of the Lord, one should be careful to avoid 10 offenses. From Sanat Kumara, it is understood that even if a person is a severe offender in many ways, he is freed from offensive life if he takes shelter of the Lord's holy name. Indeed, even if a human being is no better than a two-legged animal, he will be liberated if he takes shelter of the holy name of the Lord. One should therefore be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord's holy name. The offenses are described as follows. A. To blaspheme a devotee, especially a devotee engaged in broadcasting the glories of the holy name. B. To consider the name of Lord Shiva or any other demigod to be equally as powerful as the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor is anyone superior to him. C. To disobey the instructions of the spiritual master. D. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures and literatures compiled in pursuance of the Vedic literatures. E. To comment that the glories of the holy name of the Lord are exaggerated. F. To interpret the holy name in a deviant way. G. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. H.
to compare the chanting of the holy name to pious activities. I, to instruct the glories of the holy name to a person who has no understanding of the chanting of the holy name. J, not to awaken in transcendental attachment for the chanting of the holy name, even after hearing all these scriptural injunctions. There is no way to atone for any of these offenses. It is therefore recommended that an offender at the holy name at the feet of the holy name continue to chant the holy name 24 hours a day. Constant chanting of the holy name will make one free of offenses, and then he will gradually be elevated to the transcendental platform on which he can chant the pure holy name and thus become a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is recommended that even if one commits offenses, one should continue chanting the holy name. In other words, the chanting of the holy name makes one offenseless. In the book Nama Kaumudi, it is recommended that if one is an offender at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, he should submit to that Vaishnava and be excused. Similarly, if one is an offender in chanting the holy name, he should submit to the holy name and thus be freed from his offenses. In this connection, there is the following statement spoken by Daksha to Lord Shiva. I did not know the glories of your personality, and therefore I committed an offense at your lotus feet in an open assembly. You were so kind, however, that you did not accept my offense. Instead, when I was falling down because of accusing you, you saved me by your merciful glance. You are most great. Kindly excuse me and be satisfied with your own exalted qualities. One should be very humble and meek to offer one's desires and chant prayers composed in glorification of the holy name, such as Ayi Mukta Kulayar Upasyamanam Namashtaka 1 and Nivrititarshair Upagiyamanan Bhagavatam 10.1.4. One should chant such prayers to become free from offenses at the lotus feet of the holy name.
And that brings us to the end of our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam for the day. We'll be taking it up tomorrow. We'll try for 3:30 unless otherwise stated. Go Premanande Nittai Gaura Hari Bo Hari Bo Nittai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpadurvishcha Kripasinabhevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakoti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.